Right. Okay, so we're going live and recording. So welcome to all the devotees that are here participating. And want to thank Syamasundara and for coming and being our interviewee, and for Kuradas, who is doing the Spanish translation today, and all the participants for being here, because if you weren't here, we wouldn't have anybody to talk to. So as you all know, we're doing a series of interviews, and it's called The Beauty and Messiness of the Sadhaka's Journey. And this is probably our 6th or 7th interview now, and we've had some really nice interviews so far, and it's an opportunity for us to all get to know each other, that's for sure, because I've learned so much from devotees that I thought I knew for 20, 30 years, and finding out all kinds of new things about them. So really an opportunity to go deeper in our connections. And I think for me personally, the main thing I'm hoping devotees will take away from hearing these interviews is that the messiness is a very vital part of our journey. And the more we can embrace the adversity and the challenges and the difficulties that come into our life, the more we'll actually find Krishna in the equation. So I'm going to start by reading just a short bio that Syamasundara gave me. So he joined in Eugene, which is in Oregon, for those of you and that Oregon is in the United States. And that was August 6, 1996. He got his first and second initiation on Balaram Purnim 2 weeks later. The services most members of the congregation know him for are his deity dressing, cooking, and writing a few Bengali songs that are being sung in the programs of the Sangha. And he's been in Madhuban now since 2009, doing all those services we just mentioned, plus some personal gardening and teaching languages online to maintain himself and contribute to the ashram. And he's also the co-editor of the Madhuban Quarterly. So that's a short, modest bio that's really, really packed full of impressive talents and attributes. I was thinking there is so much in here. I just wanted to ask a couple of questions. How many languages do you know?
I usually go by 6.5.
6.5. Can you tell us what those 6.5 languages are?
Well, Italian is my mother tongue, and then I speak English. I guess in order of fluency, English, Spanish, French, Portuguese, German, and Bengali would be the half language, because I studied it for these songs, and I have like a proclivity for languages, but I'm not, like, for example, I could teach in all these 6 languages, but not in Bengali. I couldn't teach Italian in Bengali or something like that. But I mean, I'm familiar.
That's so impressive to me. I'm like so language challenged that I have trouble with English. I can't even imagine trying to fluently speak another language. So I'm very impressed with that. And how did you discover this language you have on your, I think maybe on your, somewhere I saw you call yourself the language nerd. When did you discover that you were a language nerd?
That would be my business name, Sergio the Language Nerd, if I can make a little shameless plug in the context of all this. But because I said, I mean, the more money I make here, the more I can hope and count on being Madhuvan's bank. Like, let's make this yoga pavilion happen. And sure, I'll pay for it. I'll front the money. That's the idea. So that's just, so it's clear. But yeah, I'm Sergio the Language Nerd, and it's a very young website that I'm slowly contributing to, and I don't know, it's just a name that I chose. I used to go by Language Buff, and it just happened. I when I hit middle school, I was sorted for German. In Milan, we only have 5 middle schools that teach German. I was like, German? Who wants to learn German? And then, because everybody wants to learn English, and but then the first grades I started to get were like top or a little like A minus. I was like, well, I guess I like German after all. And then middle school ended, and I chose a language-oriented high school, which is the system in Italy. So there, German was the first language because it's the one I was coming with. English by default, you cannot learn English. And then I took Spanish at 17 in the third year. And then at some point, and then I took Russian also in the afternoon. Just for fun. It was free. I was
It's
like, yeah,
fun.
who am I not to know Russian? So I took a little bit of Russian. And then it was just triggering me. I remember once, like it was when I was feeling down, I would just go to say Barnes and Noble equivalent. I bought a little book in Portuguese, sure, Hebrew. It's just fun. Like, I don't know if it feeds my ego or it kind of empowers me. It's like, all right, comes easy. So, but yeah, words are very important for me. Words and colors are very prominent in
Mm.
my experience of the world.
Yeah, so not only are you have you learned languages but and speak them, but you're also a writer. Um, so you're doing a lot with words. Words are definitely your service for sure.
Yeah,
So
I'm just making a good use of I don't know if it's a bad bargain, but I mean, making good use with what I have. So I'm making my own teaching material, and it's a lot of fun. I'm learning about my own language while teaching. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. It's just like I remember the first time I hear a word, a new word. I learned perusal from Brindaranya and expedient from I just remember where I was, who said it to me the day. I learned hubris from Asha Maharaj, and it just strike me.
it just
Words just
strikes you.
strike
That's
me.
amazing. Yeah. And you're the thing is that you're not just a language nerd. That from your little short bio, we also see that you do a lot of other things like cooking. And I mean, all the pictures I've ever seen of you in Madhuvan practically have been either gardening or cooking pictures. So
Yeah.
you have a lot to do with growing food, cooking food, making wonderful, delicious things. And your deity seva also. So yeah, very well. Sounds like you're very well rounded and well suited for being at Madhuvan. So we'll get to hopefully unpack all that as we
Yeah.
tell your story. So the first question I just would want to ask would be, was there anything in your childhood growing up that gave you hints or clues about your proclivity towards a spiritual path?
Yes, and not proclivity. It's let me start from the beginning because you were saying that you wanted to know how I'm nervous. So when I got your invitation, it's been a whole roller coaster of emotions. At first of all, I hadn't understood what you were doing because I was like, sage. There are no sages around. The good ones are all dead. So I mean, with all due respect, with the local ones in our sangha and at present, but I was like, who is she interviewing? Um, so I thought that you were, maybe interviewing Guru Maharaj or, all the other sannyasis, maybe some other acharya, or maybe pretending that you were interviewing Bhaktivinoda Thakur or something. I hadn't understood. So when I realized what you were doing, I thought that is really attractive because everybody wants to know the personal stories of us little soldiers. So uh, actually, I'll make an intro. So the roller coaster of emotion was nervous, embarrassed, humble, and I keep forgetting the fourth one. Nervous, embarrassed, humble, and grateful. So yeah, I'm grateful to be part of this because as much as I like to hear, because then of course I started with Maharjas, when I recovered from the shock of her life story, I went and listened to the recorded ones, and it was really, really nice, really inspiring. So grateful to be part of this and to be able to make the devotees happy by just sitting here and talking about myself. But embarrassed because what devotee wants to, it seems like so self-promoting, self-aggrandizing, like here I am. But at the same time, I mean, like you said, there's a lot to unpack. It's all about how mercy and grace touched us. So it really has nothing to do with us. It's just the alchemy of how bhakti came into our life, and that's what we want to hear. Now that I speak 6 languages, but I'm willing to share any detail about me, anything that could be of interest. So I'm grateful to make like everything I do is to make the devotees happy. My cooking, the Didi, dressing, the singing, in the very least, Guru Maharaj. So I don't know if people know the geography of Madhuvan, but Guru Maharaj said that he can hear me from his house. I don't know how he can do it because once it was in his house, all I could hear was barely was the mridanga, but he can hear it, and he was really happy to hear that the kirtan was going on nicely. And so I sing toward his house when I sing, more than singing towards the deities. I make sure that he hears me because I have no other hope. I mean, if I can make him happy with so little, so that is my focus. So that's why I'm grateful to be here, and I want to um, make sure that anything I may say, again, I'm trying to like overcome this obstacle of embarrassment. It's not for self promotion, but in a mood of service. And I did all my prayers just to be like, hey, when I do my prayers, whatever I'm going to say is what was supposed to be said. And I don't know. But yeah, so nervous, grateful, and also nervous because I like to be considerate. And I'm like, oh, I bet you the translator is not going to be able to keep up with me because I speak very fast. So I'm like, I should speak in such a way that is easy. I shouldn't use too many phrases and idioms that are hard to translate. And but then I'm gonna be stuttering in English because I'll be rethinking every word. So it's easy for the Spanish translator. So I'm already trembling because I'm like, oh my God. By the way, I have some service communication. I will be saying some words in Spanish when I feel that they're going to be hard to translate, and I'll keep the chat open. If anybody hasn't understood anything, I make myself available. Like, what was that story? What was that? Whatever. Just everybody's free to chat with me in Spanish later, and I'll fill in on whatever the translation wasn't able to, keep up with. So
Well, thank
nervous,
you.
embarrassed,
Um,
grateful, and humbled because I was like, sage me. I'm like, sage is I'm not even thyme or rosemary. I'm nothing. What sage am I? But again, so I'm here in a mood of service.
Very nice. I liked what you said about singing towards Guru Maharaj's cabin so he could hear you. That's your only hope. And it brought the picture of Guru Maharaj chanting right behind Srila Prabhupada every morning. And
Yeah, it's very much the spirit.
so
What
very
can I do?
beautiful. Yeah, that is our only hope. And thank you for sharing your feelings about doing the interview. I think it's really helpful for all the devotees to hear that because we've been asking devotees to participate, and some of the devotees have been like, I can't do it. It makes me too nervous. So you sharing that, I think it's really helpful. Hopefully other people who are feeling that way will come forward and see, yeah, it's not about talking about you. Like you said, it's really about glorifying Krishna in your life and seeing. It's so faith building for me to hear these stories, just how Krishna is acting in all of our lives so
Hmm.
perfectly, and it's exciting.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you can maybe talk a little bit about if there was any your childhood a little bit
Right, right. So
and
you were
how you
saying
came to
how,
Krishna. Yeah.
uh-huh. And so I was listening to the other interviews. I was like, oh my God, I haven't had any struggle. I haven't had any, people were saying that I had my crisis, life was empty, and I was like, I've never felt like this. It's been everything just so normal, and I'm like, I feel like an imposter. Am I even doing anything in this devotional pursuit? Because I heard the trouble, the crisis, the the tests that other devotees, the ones I've listened to so far, went through. It's like, geez, I'm like, it's been cakewalk. And then again, I thought of other things. It's like maybe it hasn't exactly been a walk in the park. But no, I wasn't really disenfranchised with life. I never had that moment of like, oh, looking for the truth. There's something wrong with life. It just came to me. What happened is that, um, and I might go back and forth because, I wanted to start from my birth, but it's like, I don't know. What happened is that at 16, I became a vegetarian. I was born in 1975 in Milan, Italy. And I joined, I didn't join, I started to go to a cultural vegetarian society in Milan, where the presidents were two Iskanish devotees. Her name is Paramakaruna Devi Dasi. She joined, I guess, in Italy, but then she went to New Mayapur in France, and she translated all the BBT books into Italian from France, but she also speaks English. So she was quite knowledgeable, but she could see some things in the 80s in ISKCON already. They were like, wait a second, some things are weird. So she just started to preach separately, promote vegetarianism, and with a Vaishnava imprint into it. So I just stumbled in this association. And so it just so happens that in her cultural vegetarian society, and cultural was a key word, she was, for example, teaching Sanskrit on Tuesday nights. And then on Sunday morning, she had, what was it called? Hindu philosophy, something or other. She was just talking about the Bhagavad Gita from 10 in the morning until 1 p.m. And I was just attracted to all this stuff. Now, why I was attracted, I'm losing my voice, just 1 second. I guess I was a bit of a seeker. I've always been attracted to just knowledge in general, not from a Jnani point of view, but I'm like always learning something. It's just, I cannot keep my mind at rest. Whittling or just anything, any gardening, new techniques, cooking. It's like as manual and hands-on as I'm as much a gardener and a cook as much as I'm a translator and a teacher and just researching and stuff. So because of this thirst of knowledge, which is one of the four categories of people that do go to Krishna, as he says, um, I was attracted by the, I don't know, the unknown or the esoteric in a very generic way. So being that it was before the internet, all I had was a library. And I was like, I'm not going to go to a library. Actually, I did go once looking for a book on metempsychosis, or however it's called in English, which is basically reincarnation in psychological terms. And I don't even remember what I read, but I was attracted by this idea of reincarnation. What was there to say about that? So because of this interest, I guess my steps were guided by providence or just by my sukriti and previous karma towards these devotees eventually. But I wasn't too religious. My father was, you could say, a communist, but not like he was a, Leninist, Stalinist, Marxist. He was just, well, after Second World War in Italy, we had the Communist Party and the Christian Democracy Party. My father was like, I'm a worker. I want workers to be represented and whatever, protected by politics. I definitely don't care for the interests of priests. So in that way, and also his previous wife died to cancer. So wasn't an atheist, but he wasn't that religious. He was just that kind of person. My mother was just a traditional Catholic. If you're Italian, you're Catholic. It's just the way it is. In Italy, you get baptism and weddings and funeral. I remember watching, Hollywood stuff. I'm like, they're getting married at the beach. they're getting a few, everything's just very, they get the way you get married in Las Vegas. I was like, what the? Everything's done in the church in Italy. Not now much. My sister herself has become a minister of whatever, the lay version of these ceremonies. But anyway, it's just normal in Italy to grow up in a Catholic environment. But after when I hit puberty, I was like, I don't want to go to mass at 10 in the morning on a Sunday. So if I'm not going to mass, I did the whole what's it called, church school. It wasn't Sunday school. It was like in the afternoon. I did all that, prepared for communion, I mean Eucharist, confirmation, and all that. But when I hit 13, I was like, I don't even feel like going to mass. Do I want to call myself a Christian, a Catholic? So I had that much thought about that, just a little attachment to coherence and consistency. So I was saying that I was an atheist, but not a belligerent atheist, like just like those preaching atheists that make you think, what are you doing? I mean, if you don't care, if it doesn't exist, why spend so much effort on it? I was just saying, yes, I'm an atheist. But then, well, first of all, I was constantly watching documentaries on Islam and just anything cultural. I lived on cartoons and documentaries growing up. I never had a whole lot of friends, wasn't very sociable. Um, so I was, yeah, a seeker. So when I ran into these devotees who were the presidents of this vegetarian society, I was like, far out. And there are a few things here and there. I remember I stumbled into a Harinam party and they gave me a little picture of them, the usual Haribol thing, and I put it in my school diary instead of like throwing it away. I was like, check out this cool thing I stuck it on. Because in the 90s, 80s, 90s, especially in Italy, we have this like huge school diaries where you're supposed to note your homework and stuff to do, but people just fill them with their drawings and thoughts. It was like the Facebook of the time, and they would share them with one another. And so I um, I stuck the picture of the devotees because it was an important thing. And another time, I saw them downtown and I followed them, but with much, investment in it. It was like it's just a cultural. It was just them as much as it was the Bolivian um, singers and dancers with the flutes. It was just a cultural thing, and that's what it was. Um, so when I found out the presidents of this vegetarian society were devoted, I was like, that's far out. And then she was teaching Bhagavad Gita stuff, and I went one Sunday. I didn't understand nothing. I was like, I don't know what she's talking about. 3 hours. But whatever, I guess it gave me enough sukriti, enough purification. I think it was in February. Then I went again in May and I got the answers to everything. I was like, wow, this just all made sense. And that's how I felt ever since. I was like, okay, yeah, that's how it is. And I just adopted it very gradually. So I started to go to these Bhagavad Gita or Hindu yoga philosophy. That's what she was labeling them as, something seminar or something on yoga philosophy. I was like, all right. So I was finally getting my answers on karma and reincarnation and so many more things I didn't even know I was looking for or that I didn't know. So it's just a gradual maturing and exploring. And then one day, turns out that the people that were there, they were all kind of devotees, and they're saying, "We're going to the temple. Are you going?" I was like, "Sure." Call my mother. I was 17. I became 16 vegetarian at 16, and then by the next year, I was identifying as a devotee. So, are you going to the temple? Sure. Call my mother. I'm going to the temple. So, it's yeah, my teenage years were. I remember once on a Monday, my school on the bus, my schoolmates were saying, "What did you do last, Sunday?" "Oh, I went to the stadium because soccer in Italy is a big thing." "Oh, I went to whatever." I was like, "I went to a yoga philosophy seminar," and they were like, "Oh my God, you're making me feel like crap." But I was cultivating my own interests like everybody else was. So anyway, I went to the temple, and it was like the flavors, the colors. We went right in time for the 4 o'clock darshan, the deities, well, an ISKCON temple. Actually, this Paramakaruna made some pasta at the end of this yoga philosophy thing, made some pasta, and then she did the offering. And she had like a book, sort of, what would you call it? What is that thing called? The material, pressed wood. What's it called? Plywood. A plywood structure with like a little curtain. Never thought anything about it. And then that one Sunday at 1 p.m., she opens the curtain and she had a whole array of deities. I was like, what? So she offered this pasta, and then we ate the pasta, and then we're going to the temple. Are you going? Sure. So we went there for the 4 o'clock offering, and yeah, kirtan after the 3:30 offering. And as I got in, there were like three devotees having a kirtan, and Sunday guests mostly. And one got up and gave me a play of kartals, and I just sat with them, and I just ching ching chinged away for 10 minutes. I was like, okay. And then I went for a walk, and everybody disappeared. I didn't know there was a class going on. I was left to myself, and finally I found the class. I sat through it, and then everybody started to dance. I'm like, I ain't dancing. And then cut to, the next time, 1 week later, I was like jumping around like everybody else, and so everything just came naturally. And it's always been a thickening of like, yeah, sure, that's what it is. That's what reality is. Not that I actually thought this is what it is. Just I was just flowing with it. And so I got to say, once Guru Maharaj said that I'm a natural Vaishnav, I was like, okay. I mean, I think he said it to someone else too. But I mean, we all know, I got two things to say about that. First of all, we all know that Guru Maharaj is very generous. So if there is one thing he says is my biggest defect is that I'm too generous. And we're like, that's fine. Thanks for that. So, he says that kind of stuff, and, you got to make the Brahmana's words come true. And, but I mean, he's also the first to say that Vaishnavism is a feeling. So if you're a Vaishnav, if you have the feelings of a Vaishnav, the heart of a Vaishnav, so that kind of, qualifies a statement right away. But no, I mean, on the outside, yes, like you said, a Vaishnava is somebody who cooks for the deities, who sings in kirtan, who is conversant with Sanskrit and Bengali and the scriptures, who, whatever, one of the qualities of the Vaishnava is daksha, expert. Like Vrindaranya, whatever Guru Maharaj needs for his seva, she just up and learns it, buys a book like so and so for dummies, and she does it for seva. So I guess you could see that in that light. But yeah, I've always felt like, yeah, I never even thought that Krishna was God for the longest time. It was just, it's Krishna. It's just this thing in your life. I wasn't thinking he's my friend, but Radharan is probably who I think of as God. But I would sit through the Sunday feast talks and hearing about yoga and reincarnation and this and that. I was just accepting it. It's just how it is. It really struck me when I was preaching myself and I was saying God. I was like, Krishna is God. Because coming from a Catholic background, it's a totally different thing. I get this feeling of a religious person. I sound like, self-deprecating, sad, or, constrained and something or other. Catholic is a different Catholicism or Christianity in Italy is a different feeling than it might be in the States, but still there's a lot of clergy in Italy. Nuns and priests it's like flies. No, I'm kidding, but there's a lot of clergy, and they speak in a certain way. They have a certain demeanor. To speak about God, Italy's got this stigma. Like a lot of people think you're from Israel, you're Jewish. There's so many atheists in Israel. So in Italy, it's not like if you're from Italy, you're like, chanting your rosary, and it's just what you do. You baptize your children. It's just what you do. But nobody thinks about it much. So God, and then all the nuns and the priests and the religion teachers, there's so much, bad rap on Christianity that they talk about anything other than God. It feels like you're, a fanatic or something. So anyway, it took me a long time to associate Krishna with God and religion and spirituality. It's like, no, Krishna is fun. It's colors and miracles and lifting hills and all the seasons in Vrindavan at the same time. And it's just weird, far out stuff. And, compare that to Jesus Christ and all the, oh, verily, verily, I tell thee. No comparison, even just Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which who I didn't quite like at the beginning because, I was thinking Krishna book and then Chaitanya Charitamrita is all straw and mud, all straw and mud. Everybody's wearing white. Everything is simple. It's like no miracles, no leelas. And of course, I have a different vision now. Thank God. Thank Guru Maharaj. But yeah, I remember when I realized, oh, Krishna is God. And even for the most part, I was translating back to Godhead into Italian. So my exposure to Krishna consciousness was always through English. And I remember preaching in Italian. I felt like such we say bigot in Italian, but I think in America it only means racist. A bigot is something who's like very conservative in Italian, bigotto, like, somebody who would have a, oh my gosh, she got married, she got pregnant before getting married, type of like very conservative, religious mentality. So speaking about Krishna in Italian, I felt like that. Speaking in terms of God, and so anyway, I think I made the point that Krishna was just normality, life. It's just this person who's on your mind all the time, or who you refer to, who you read about, and um, so anyway, so that was my first day at the Sunday feast. I remember the flavors, this tamarind lemonade. I was like, what is this? I had a shock. Now, I've been a vegetarian for 1 year, and my mother was like, what are you going to eat? Because until then, all I was eating was fried chicken and French fries, cheese, pasta, anything soft, mushy like a tomato, raisins. Could not eat stuff. And then I became a vegetarian, and my mother was like, what are you going to eat? So, but then I had a shock at the Sunday feast, and those flavors were like inconceivable. All those spices, cauliflower, I had cauliflower pakoras. I'm like, the way you make cauliflowers in Italy, it just smells like gas, intestinal gas. And it's like, it's not attractive food. It was just all the colors, the incense, the dancing. Everybody was happy. These devotees were all humorous. Again, yes, there may be humorous Catholic priests, but they didn't strike me as religious people or as spiritualists. So growing up, yes, I used to spend, I like to say that I used to be a Sunday feaster, Harry Bowler, until I met Guru Maharaj, because that's what I was doing. Whenever I would have a chance, I would go to the Sunday feast, to the Rath Yatra, to spend like a week or a weekend with the devotees, because that's where it felt like home. I remember one day I used to go there on Saturday, and then on Sunday I would do some service. I was the shloka on the blackboard guy for the Sunday feast. I was like writing the shloka for the Sunday feast talk, and I had my little services. But one day I woke up to go to the bathroom, and it was the ashram was built on top of what used to be the barn, and it smelled very much like something like camphor coming from the toilets. It was not the most welcoming environment. I was like so at home just for it being a Gaudiya Vaishnav ashram. It felt like, I was surrounded by like-minded people. Because whether it's my Mercury or my Saturn, I'm not going to get into the details of my chart, but I've always felt like a fish out of water in general, not in relation to my craving for bhakti. But I'm always the oldest one, or the one who is, to skip in the future for a second. I remember being in San Diego as a rickshawala, surrounded by 20, 30-year-old kids. And there I was, older than them, with a background of like 5 years in an ashram, and thinking, just, I've always liked people watching. It's like a movie. Like, I don't want to sound like condescending, like, but these people don't have any clue about the ego, about the mind, about what drives them. And here I am driving the same pedicabs as them, but I have a totally different world view, and who's going to understand me? So I always feel like out of place. But anyway, going back to that, I felt at home, and it's a feeling that has always been there. So I never had the struggle. Like I've never felt like, is this really for me? Like, sometimes people join and then they're like, this is not for me. The thought would never even cross my mind. When I joined in Eugene, when I joined Guru Maharaj in 96, soon after, somebody was struggling. Um, and and I was talking to him, and I think I don't know, I talked to him with the little knowledge I had at the time, and I kind of convinced him to stay or to keep trying. And then I went to Guru Maharaj out of the blue, and I said, I think I went to serve him a meal or something, and I said, I'd like you to know that no matter what happens, I'll never leave you. And he said, oh, it's a nice feeling. Um, that's all I remember, but it was crystal clear. And he said that about me. He's never going to leave me. So, I mean, I've always felt like the pilot flame of my bhakti just, in a stainless steel box. It will not blow away. Now, it doesn't mean I'm a Vaishnava, doesn't mean my practice is solid, doesn't mean I've made any advancement. No, but I've
You have
always
that
felt
conviction.
Nityananda's hand, or Guru Maharaj's hand hovering on my head.
Mm.
And it's always been like that. And it's always been like, like I said, Krishna or Krishna consciousness is just part of life. I remember being in San Diego at some point. I was in Portland, Oregon, and Guru Maharaj said, "Come over," because I was in Europe after I left Audaria, and I went to it all, degenerate. I went to San Francisco to pay for my green card, and then my mother died, or that was before, whatever. I ended up in Italy, and then Guru Maharaj said, "Why don't you come back?" He said, your stay in the material world has lasted long enough, and maybe now you should come back. And I was like, okay. But he said you could work for this person, you could work in this publishing house, and nothing, everything fell through. But I did move eventually to San Diego to work for Vaikuntha, who had this t-shirt business.
Mm.
So I had like very little money. And so I moved to San Diego, and Vaikuntha was pressing to start working for him. I was like, I'm in a hostel. And I was like living 3 days here, 3 days there. But I always had this feeling that Krishna will take care of me. I will find a place. I will find a job. It's always been like that. I remember once at some point in my rickshawala career, the Americans were calling the police on the Turkish and Brazilian pedicabbers because they were overcharging and kind of spoiling the market for them. And I was like, I'm here on a religious worker visa, which is a whole other Leela. I called my rickshaw Radha Prasad because it was a miracle how I got the license, the working license with a religious worker visa. But anyway, I was there with my Radha Prasad rickshaw. I was like, I can't risk to get caught by the police and get deported because then I cannot come back to my guru's country for 10 years. So I just stopped working, and I had 8 lessons of pottery paid for. I was just I was making mugs, and I made those kalash for the installation of Gonitai at Audaria, some vases. And so that was fun. I was using that time to just make vases to bathe Gonitai on the installation. But I, in passing, said to a lady that I only had $200 left. And she was like, how can you live? I would be like in panic. And I was like, I didn't say it, but I was like, clearly Krishna's taking care of me. It's, you know, what is it? Rakshishyatiti Vishwasa, the faith that he will protect. Rakshishyatiti Vishwasa. And it wasn't forced or like scripturally based. It was just my feeling, which I'm really grateful for. Um, and that's what it's been all throughout my devotional life. I remember being stricken by Sridhar Maharaj's statement when he joined or was considering joining Gaudiya Math. He thought, if there is anything fishy here, even if they put me on a throne, I won't stay. But if there is anything worthwhile, even if they beat me 100 times every day, I won't leave. So I've always treasured that mentality, and by Krishna's grace, had it. I remember that. I mean, I was very immature. I joined at 21 in Eugene. I was 21 years old. I had never worked I never paid taxes, never had any responsibilities. I had a lot of mental, things. I was prone to depression. Um, and it was a handful. And so um, I remember thinking, if Guru Maharaj ever kicked me out, I was just thinking about it 2 nights ago. Genuinely thought, if Guru Maharaj ever kicked me out, I'll just sit right outside his gate and fast until death. I was like convinced, like, what else am I going to do? How can I keep living? I mean, what am I going to do? And again, it was like a very what'd you say, not very thought out. Like, I wouldn't have like let myself starve to death, and like would the other just have left me there? That's what there was no other solution, just what there, and just my Guru Maharaj hasn't has rejected me. What's out there for me? So that was my mentality.
It's really beautiful. I was remember, I think it was Srivas Thakur that Lord Chaitanya asked, how are you living? You don't have a job, you have this big family. How are you living? And Srivas Thakur said, well, every day I think, well, if I'll clap my hands 3 times, and if what I need doesn't come, I'll throw myself in the Ganges. And so I was thinking that's a similar kind of mentality of, well, if Krishna doesn't take care of me, then whatever, I'll just do it, I'll do myself in or fast to death. But the idea that, yeah, Krishna always does come through for the devotees and maintains us, and to have that kind of faith, to be able to, not be overly concerned about maintenance. And it's such a trap for devotees too. I know I moved into an ashram for 12 years, and I had a very wonderful experience of being free from worry about money and having to take care of myself. It was like, okay, Krishna's providing everything. And then going out and becoming a householder, and how Krishna was still taking care, but it was seemed that I was more responsible, and so it became more of a challenge. That was one of my challenges, and it's still one of my challenges. So I really appreciate how you've been able to keep going in an ashram kind of situation, and just have that faith. It's a really good example. So I know who I can call now when I'm having a meltdown. Can you give me a pep talk?
No, I mean, things have changed now that I'm such a moneymaker and a family person. It seems so weird because I've always been like dependent, always been like not the inferior, but the one provided for. And it's always, I'm pretty happy now. Maybe I'm very distracted at this point in my life devotionally. I've got so many things going on, but like Guru Maharaj says, it's better to be an outsider thinking, when can I go back to the ashram? When can I go? Than being a brahmachari and thinking, oh, if I had a life. And again, I always have the best of both worlds, and I feel so embarrassed because I'm having my family life and dressing Krishna and touching Krishna and Balaram every morning, and they smile to me every morning. And it's just embarrassing. I meditate a lot on the name Govinda. He fulfills all your desires, because it means he pleases the senses. So people's desires are about the senses, whether it's your spiritual senses, and then they're all in relation to Krishna Seva, or your own senses. Govinda is the one behind that, directly or indirectly. So I always got what I wanted in life, and I feel like it's humbling. I mean, it could go very bad. It could be like, hey, I get whatever I want, but it's really humbling and embarrassing. And so again, I feel I get the best of both worlds, to the detriment of my absorption in bhakti like it used to be before, but I wasn't as well adjusted before. So now I'm making my own money, and again, I spend it on the ashram or on devotional things, whatever is necessary, every time I get the chance. But it's really important for me to be able to have that little bit of autonomy, because as much as I sounded like a Sharanagata 5 minutes ago, it's really not that. There's a lot of struggle, since we're here to talk about the struggle. If I ever felt any struggle, it's mostly on the material, human level, not much my own faith. Like, is this the thing? Can I, will I ever succeed? There's one thing about the way I live bhakti is I'm a very positivist person.
Mm.
I couldn't deal with the whole, what's it called? Prarthana, or like the whole hankering. Oh, when and well would that day be mine, which I value and I understand as much as I can. But I can't. Like, oh, all that absorption of Maya, oh, my mind. I'm like focusing on what's, what's it called? Vishwam Purnam Sukhayate. How is the world an abode of joy?
Boy, yeah.
What is there, count your blessings. How is the environment friendly? So I never thought in terms of like, oh, I haven't made any progress, or the kind of like good self-deprecation or good self-analysis. But I just cannot be. I would get too frustrated. So,
Well,
but there's still struggle.
I was just going to say that, you have a disposition that seems to really help you to be able to practice bhakti happily, and you kind of found situations that have worked for you. But yeah, I mean, I was just thinking about all the things that have happened in Madhuban since I've been,
Yeah, we went through
around.
earthquakes and
Yeah, yeah,
hurricanes and
yeah. So talk a little bit about that. Now that's, I would die in that
yeah, yeah.
situation.
My biggest fear is, for the next earthquake to be at night during a rainstorm. Uh, and
Mm,
that's good enough. I mean, it's bad enough. It's really unsettling. You're like, is it going to
mm,
stop, or is the cabin going to fall on top of me? And
mm,
so, but you get used to the tarantulas, the snakes, the bugs, the mud, the dust, the Costa Ricans. Everything is, I mean, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. But so what I was saying, the struggles are on the material side, the human interaction side, because it's like
mm.
live in elbow. It's not like, and the contrast between the spiritual and the material, because many times you're there thinking, are we God brothers, or are we co-workers? Are we God brothers, or are we transcendentalists, or are we all, you know, bickering on for, is this the office, like the sitcom? It's like, are we office co-worker bickering on, he said that, oh, he just wants to do this shit. Yeah, all those ego things and mind, everybody just pours into the cauldron their own baggage of emotion and mind. And so it's like living together, like in the military, elbow to
Yeah.
elbow, which is hard enough. I mean, it's a family that, a very extended family, where, your brothers and sisters come and go. You have to come to know someone. Every couple of months, there's somebody new, and you have this like background of transcendental knowledge and experience, which is not exactly the same for everybody. And you have to deal with so many minds, antidaivic, adibhautika, Atmika Klesha, you get the weather, the hurricanes, the people, the bugs, and so on a material level, like I could be living in a permaculture project right now and deal with the same difficulties. Oh, he said that, she is like this. But on top of it, you have to balance the transcendental. Like, are you the temple pres? Are you like a devotee, or are you an acharya, or are you a manager? Are we co-workers, or are we god brothers? Is
Mm,
this seva, or am I paying rent, or am I
mm,
somebody says something, oh, I should take it as a teaching, because the only person I can change is myself, and I should learn from it. The environment is friendly. Meanwhile, you're like, yeah, but so and so is behaving this way and having it go in a certain way, and I cannot speak. And it's really a lot of balancing, the interpersonal
absolutely.
relationships, and
Yeah.
and then the balancing of the spiritual with the material. As I said, it's more than being in the military or any other social environment where you're like elbow to elbow with somebody else.
Yeah.
So that would be the
Yeah.
struggle.
Well, that's,
But
I think, probably for a lot of devotees. I mean, it's interesting because the stories that we've heard from devotees have kind of showcased some, major event in their life that was, very challenging in terms of maybe an abuse or something. But I think what you're talking about, the messiness of the relationships, because I think that is the most difficult aspect of everybody's lives, whether they're in an ashram or they're living at home with family and, husband, wife, children. I mean, I think more than anything, those day in and day out interactions and how we get triggered, it's all it is part of our spiritual growth. It's a major part of an Archana-siddhi. So anyway, just so you can maybe talk more about it, because I think everybody that's going to be listening to this have probably really identifies with what you're saying.
Yeah, it's I mean, devotional life doesn't mean ashram life. That's clear for everybody. For me, it has been, because I joined in 96. I joined Guru Maharaj's ashram and mission in 96, and I was asked to live in 2001, I think. And then I was coming and going. I was living in Southern California and going for the Rath Yatras and festivals. And then I joined, again, Guru Maharaj asked me to come here, and I came in 2009. So it's been 12 years. So most of my devotional life has been interacting with devotees. And it's I mean, it really all boils down to your sincerity and your luck. Because I mean, what is my merit in being sincere? Yeah, sincere and serious.
I like that.
That's a good one. We should all be sincere.
Sincere, that's
It's
good.
like, I don't know, am I really sitting down and thinking, oh, I'm like this, but I want to be like that? I think people have their own innate attitudes. Like, for the most part, I'm known as the one who's always criticizing, always complaining, and always negative. Um, Half of the times, always misunderstood, if you ask me. But anyway, going back to Mercury, but there's a bit of truth in both sides. So I'm not this like happy-go-lucky person. Um, and that's probably one thing that I changed. But again, is it me changing devotionally, or just like, you know, getting beatings on my gums from life, from, living, karma, or whether it's karma or maya, it's all for learning. So I wouldn't say that that's how I developed and matured devotionally, but yeah, I try to be more. And plus, I just got old. Just with age, you make experience. And I definitely am not the same 21-year-old guy when I joined. So, but yeah, going back to the struggles, it's just if I can leave with some piece of advice, is just keep the service attitude, and just keep as sincere as you can. Of course, it comes with a certain, baggage of knowledge and experience and involvement with the devotees. These are not just dry words if left at themselves. So maybe I can leave you with, not leave you like it's time to go, but I can stay 3 hours. But I can say this story that once I took, I hope it's to the point. Once I took Brajalila and what's her name, Rati, to the airport to go back to the States. And then they told me, buy some hay for the cows. And I did my shopping. I put gas in the car, did everything responsibly. And for some reason, Guru Maharaj called me, where are you? I'm at the store. Well, come back or something. And I don't know what he worded in such a way. It sounded like I was like puttering around, just wasting time. Like, oh, little kid went to town and he's just spending money on candy. I was like, oh, why is he speaking like that? Whatever. So I did all my shopping. I put gas in the car and everything, and I didn't get the grass because it was just late. It was like sunset. We were getting these bales from a guy we buy honey from, and it was like dinner time. And I was like, I'm not gonna go there during his dinner. I guess who's gonna cut grass for the cows tomorrow? I mean, I would have just chopped some grass, put it in bags, and brought it to the cows instead of coming with a bale. One bale. I was asked to buy one bale of hay. So I was like, no big deal. Somehow Guru Maharaj calls me. I don't know if he was informed or misinformed or he was testing me somehow. He called me over and he said, why didn't you buy the hay? And I said, well, I ran out of money. On top of it, I ran out of money and time. Oh, so you spend money on this and that? Well, no, I mean, I was paying gas with all the coins between the seats. Oh, so you did this and that. He was like trying to corner me. I'm like, what is this trip? What's going on? And he said, well, this is not America. That it's like a gated community, and I'm gonna call you lazy on that because you didn't go there to, interrupt somebody's dinner for one bale of hay. And I was there sitting on the floor. He was in a chair. And I was thinking, that's when I was talking about sincerious. By some grace, I thought, all right, he's calling me lazy for the wrongest possible reasons. It's just the way it was. But am I lazy? Yes. So then I'll just take it. Who cares? Because what is the satisfaction in having your guru go, oh, is that how it was? Oh, I'm sorry. It's like, no, that should be everybody's worst nightmare, to have your guru apologize. Not like Guru Maharaj doesn't apologize. Or once he said, can you go up to my room, please, and take my child? I was like, don't please me, like, he's a gentleman. But you don't want your guru to apologize. Even no matter how wrong he is, it's always the onus is on us to make it work somehow. And sure enough, because I had this thought of thinking, he's calling me lazy for something that didn't even happen, but am I lazy? Yeah, to some extent, I'm lazy. I'll see how I'm lazy and take the teaching. He didn't know anything of that. But because I thought of it, now it could be my whole esoteric reading of it. Later on, he was on the same porch of my own cabin, just doing his thing because he didn't have internet where he was. And I was like coming up the road with a wheelbarrow full of gravel or stones. And he was like holding the gate for me. And whether he just felt embarrassed for being so severe, so strict for something that ended up not being the case, or somehow, the good in my heart talked to the good in his heart, and he could see that, just see, he took it the right way. There was a lot more to learn than if I'd said, what are you talking about? I didn't, just talking back to your guru, which I did, unfortunately, a couple of times because anyway. And then the opposite is also true. Another big teaching happened another time when we wanted to sell the house in Eugene. So Guru Maharaj would come to the temple from the back door and sit on this. It was going straight into the temple room. This one day, I was mopping the floor after breakfast or something, and Guru Maharaj came from the front door, and there was a burn mark on the hardwood floor in the house that we were about to sell. And Guru Maharaj said, what is that? And I said, Jivanuga dropped a ghee wick. He was going around with the ghee lamp and dropped a ghee wick and left a big burn mark on the wood floor. Nothing else happened after that. But as soon as I said it, again, it could be my esoteric reading, I felt that what wasn't more important for Guru Maharaj was not that the hardwood floor was damaged in a house that we were trying to sell, but like, look, this disciple, how fast, how quickly he was willing to sling mud on his god brother. Oh, Chivanuga. Like, I thought it was a good thing. Like, I'm on your side. I'm like, yeah, look at this burn. Whereas Guru Maharaj, he said it a couple of times, nothing pleases me more than to see my god brother, my well, god brothers too, but my disciples get along in seva. And conversely, nothing displeases him more than to see this kind of like, not like I had any beef with Chivanuga, but I could tell as soon as I spoke, and I was like, oh my God, I just criticized my own god brother in the presence of my guru. No matter how right and how objective the thing was, he dropped a flaming ghee wick on the hardwood floor. I'm 100% sure that he could see that my reaction struck him more than the fact that somebody accidentally dropped a ghee wick. So yeah, I mean, we should always feel in our pulse and keep a service attitude and an open attitude. How can I change? Because you cannot change anybody else, and it's hard.
Sincerious. I
And
like that
serious.
word.
Speaking of words, yeah, I even make them up.
Yeah, no, it's great. I love those kind of, you can get away with it when you know lots of different languages and you can say, oh, just combine them, and it's great. Yeah, so the teachings of the interactions with the guru, I know Padmanabha Swami recently has been talking about in one of his recent classes about being edited by Guru Maharaj. He's having his book edited. Guru Maharaj is editing it, and how that's, been a surrender, of his heart to, let go of parts of the book, with big sections. I'll take this out. You don't need this. Just be. So he realized that actually he's not editing my book. He's editing me. And I just thought, wow, that's just such a beautiful way to look at it, because it's true. Guru Maharaj, he's editing us, and he sees our, he sees past everything, and sees, he sees our soul, but he also sees our conditioning, and it can be brutal sometimes. But yeah, if you take it with the right spirit, like you did with, in the first case, how you were able to just not, defend yourself, but you just kind of took it. I mean, that you could have had a discussion with them, that would have been fine too. But the way you took it, it turned out for you to be a real good lesson in teaching. And yeah, and I think it's really healthy for us to share these things, because we're all going to have our, opportunities to practice humility, tolerance, respect with the guru disciple relationship and our God brothers and God sisters. There's just hundreds of opportunities a day to
That's why Guru Maharaj writes Shri Guru. Sorry to cut you off. That's why Guru Maharaj writes Shri Guru in his books, because it's a much broader reality. It's true whatever you said about Guru Maharaj, but it's like broader than him too. It's about Shri Guru, because he, whatever you said about Guru Maharaj doing to us, he may doing it to us and for us without even knowing. It's like this current, the spiritual current happening. That's why in the Bhagavatam, there are so many gurus, like, the water is my guru, the bee is my guru. So even without knowing, our guru teaches us. Clearly, Shri Guru acts through our guru, obviously. But
Krishna is, directly working through the guru in a very particular individual way for each of us. And seeing that from that perspective can be so helpful. So so that's, I want to leave a little bit of time for questions is that okay that we open up questions?
No problem.
Anything else that you would want to say to
I've said 1/10 of what I thought I'd be able to talk about, no matter how fast I spoke.
The time flies on these interviews. I know.
Again, sorry to the interpreter, because I was really speaking fast, but that's usually how I speak. And I usually tell my students I'm not on cocaine, I'm just passionate, because it's like, not that me is my favorite subject, but if I have a lot to say, I speak very fast. And then, but
Akrur said he would stop us if we were speaking too fast. So he didn't stop us. So I think maybe we did okay. Well, he'll let us know. He'll give us some feedback, I'm sure.
And again, I'll extend my invitation. If anybody who speaks Spanish got lost in the translation or whatever, they can, contact me personally, and I will happily fill in the gaps in their own native idiom.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. And I know we could have unpacked this for hours. That's the only downside, I think, of these interviews is we're condensing a whole lifetime of experience and coming to Krishna and, trying to showcase it. But maybe we'll have opportunities to do, more interviews with the same people down the road.
I'm all for it, even in relation to everybody else who got interviewed and will be interviewed. I'm ready for 2.0. 2.0 from everybody else, because it's there's always so much. It's an infinite topic, because again, it's not life, it's not autobiographies, but it's how bhakti touched us and graced us.
That's
Has so
right.
many stories. I was just thinking about my own life, and I was like, oh my God, I went through some, and so many crazy things happened to me. I'll say one that really I remember. Once when I was in Italy, because I had to, well, basically my visa expired. When my mother died in '97, I came back with a entry only visa, and then I got it extended, but it looked like I came into the States with a one-way ticket. So ever since then, it's problems for me at the airport. They put the circled I that goes for stands for inspect. They give me so much hell for that. Anyway, um, my
Mm.
visa expired. I couldn't extend it. Something. Anyway, I went to Italy to make money for the green card because originally I wanted to get the green card and live at Audaria or close to Audaria, whatever the case was. Um, so I ended up in Italy and I was working in all kinds of call centers and places where they could value somebody who speaks, most European languages. And of course, I was very distracted. Ekadashi is the first thing that you don't do, and then chanting your rounds become, very saltuary and everything. And I was just very distracted. Again, never quite felt like what was I doing with my life. I always had this like pilot flame on. And one day, it was like a late summer evening. There was a storm happening, as it happens in the East Coast or in Italy, and I heard the thunder and just casually looked outside, and the sky was clear, and there was this big blue cloud with lightning going through it, which is what they say about Radha Krishna in the scripture. Sometimes they're described as Krishna is like a blue cloud, and Radharani is what sheds light to that cloud. She is the Shakti, and she makes the cloud visible. And it was dusk, so I could see the sky and the buildings and everything else. But I was really like humbled. I was like, just see when there is no search for Sri Krishna. There is a loving search for the lost servant. Krishna is going out of his way to make me remember him with like fireworks and lightning and clouds. And I was like so not sad, but like really moved to tears. Like God is like, because there is a person on the other side. It's not like philosophy and sadhana. It's like there is a person we're interacting with. Wonderful person who can eat a forest fire and so many things, who is everything and everywhere, and a person at the same time, and but a person nonetheless, if we choose to approach the absolute in that as Bhagavan, as opposed to the other two aspects. So it was really like humbling. And the same thing happened one night coming back from San Jose from a program. This time it was pitch dark. It was here because here highways are not illumined. So we were driving in the dark. It was the rainy season. Guru Maharaj was um, in the front seat. Anandanam, our local Anandanam, was driving, and I was in the back. And all of a sudden, this lightning happened, boom, and it lit another big black, a single cloud. It wasn't like a lot of clouds, like this big cloud in front of it. And I told Guru Maharaj, "Did you see that?" And we talked about Radharani, how Shakti makes Brahman appreciable, how do you say that, or knowable, etc. And he liked, I mean, whether he was reminded of that by because nature is constantly talking to you about Krishna. Here we have so many calf hoof prints filled with water, and how can you not think of the Bhagavatam and that verse? Everything makes you think of Krishna if you're tuned into it. So Guru Maharaj, naturally, if he see, I would think that if he sees lightning shedding light on a dark cloud, well, what else are you going to think about? But it was really nice to live that. Okay, I have to say another one because it was really nice. Once we were coming back from Brighton Bush, we went to the hot springs in Brighton Bush in Oregon. Um, so on the way back, it was dusk. Um, and this disciple of Prabhupada was talking to Guru Maharaj about the Nazis and the Aryan how, Sridhar Maharaj was, how the Indians were thinking well about, thinking positively about the Aryans or the Nazis, this kind of stuff. Meanwhile, it was sunset, and the highway wasn't too separate. It was like on a bridge or something. So there was our lane, some space, and an ocean of oops, gave it away. An ocean of cars of all colors coming the opposite direction. And it was so dusty, and they created this slow cloud of dust that went all the way up to obscure the sun, which was sunset, so it was low. And I was like, wow, this is like motorized Godhuli or something. And then I looked at Guru Maharaj, and while the other devotee was yakking about Nazis and stuff, Guru Maharaj was looking at those cows. It really was like Godhuli on the highway. So I was like, wow, we're on the same length. We're experiencing the same thing. That was super sweet. All right, I can
Yeah,
conclude
so
now.
many beautiful things to remind us if we're tuned in like that. Yeah, exactly. To be able to, see Krishna in everything, every moment of our lives. So thank you for that. Those are really nice stories. I do have a question here from Sumati. She wants to know how you met Guru Maharaj.
Oh, I was in Vrindavan, and physically I met him in Vrindavan. If you want to go a little more esoteric, which reminded me of another story. I gotta say this one, I'll say it as fast as I can. When we decided to leave Eugene, because the congregation was very much not favorable anymore, I made this cake, and moksha in Bengali is pronounced mokka. So I made a mocha cake. It was chocolate and fake coffee. And so I told Guru Raj, I made a mocha cake. He was like, Syamasundara is always looking at the philosophical, esoteric. Anyway, so yeah, esoterically, I could tell you that I asked Nityananda Prabhu. I went to India for a pilgrimage when I was, after my high school. I was the fifth child of my mother after 5 miscarriages. So I was the sixth, the only one who actually survived, and the third child of my father, but the only son that he finally had. Little did he know that I'd be homosexual, but anyway, he thought he'd have his son, etc. But so I'm not saying that I was spoiled. I have two sisters who are 11 and 17 years older than me, who sometimes would see the contrast. Not much the older one. The older one was already married, but the 11-year-older one was like, God, this guy, everything he asks, he gets it. Because, for my mother, I was like, I'm finally the fetus who survived. And so whatever, I said, can I go to India? And sure, I got the money to go to India after high school. And I went on a pilgrimage everywhere, Vrindavan, Mathura, Dwarka, everywhere. So I found this magazine from Bangalore to Puri called Mantra Tantra Yantra Vijnana. And there was an article about the guru. And I was like, yeah, I should be. I was a, Sunday feaster, Hari bowler at that time already. I was, 19. So I've been a devotee for 2 whole years. And I was like, yeah, I need to find a guru. But I mean, Prabhupada waited 11 years before getting initiated, and the climate in ISKCON is what it is. What am I to do? But so anyway, I was really stricken by that article about the importance of the guru, and then I came back, and during my civil service, which we have to do in Italy, if it's not military service, it's a civil service. So I was working in a co-op, doing stuff. So it was Kartik. So I made this solemn vow of chanting 1 round a day, begging Nityananda Prabhu, please come to me as Sri Guru, because what am I going to do here? And so let's see, had I been in India already? Maybe I'm mixing two stories. Yeah, no, okay. So I saw this magazine, then I went to Puri, then I went to Mayapur, then back to Vrindavan, and there some devotee whose name was Syamasundara, now he's Parivrajak Maharaj, if he still a sannyasi, I hope for him. He was a disciple of Sridhar Maharaj, and he was translating Sridhar Maharaj's books into Italian. And he was at the Rupanuga Bhajan Ashram in Vrindavan, which was co-owned by Narasingha Maharaj and Guru Maharaj. So he invited me over to help him translate and take prasadam, because I ran out of money. I had to take a plane from Bangalore back to wherever, because of the flood, something. Um, so I was out of money. He said, you can come and take prasadam there. And there, one day, Guru Maharaj, you know these Indian houses that have the central courtyard with the bars for the monkeys. So Guru Maharaj's room was in the corner. To go to the bathroom, he had to go through the book room into that kind of like inner balcony to the bathroom and back to the book room into his house or room. So I was there translating the Golden Volcano of Divine Love into Italian with the Syamasundara. And then on the way back, Gurunaj stopped. And he was so unassuming. I was so used to the ISKCON gurus that, back in the 90s, when an ISKCON guru would come for the Sunday feast talk, people would chant Jaya Prabhupada because that's what they used to do in the 70s and in the 70s. And he's a representative. So, and it was a whole take off your shoes, bow down every time you see them thing. And there comes this sannyasi with maybe his uttariya on, no danda. I mean, clearly he was going to the bathroom. So little short man, and then he comes back and he says, "Who's this young guy?" And Syamasundara said, "He's an Italian. He's a friend of the devotees." I remember thinking, "Friend of the devotees? I'm a devotee. A friend of the devotees who's helping me translate in the Golden Volcano." And Guru was like, "Welcome." A weird look that I've been saying this story for 30 years, and that's how I've been saying it. But I'm pretty sure that that's how it happened. That he went, "Welcome," and it felt like, there you are, finally, kind of thing. And that was it. I was like, a sannyasi with the beard, like in ISKCON, they're always super glowing. And it was like little short man with the beard, no danda, no garland. I was like, okay, whoever that is. And because originally I had darshan with Narasingha Maharaj when I went with this Paramakaruna, who eventually had moved to India. We went there, we had darshan with him. He gave her the inside of Guru Maharaj's, Prabhupada's canvas shoes that he had dipped in bronze. So it was a whole acharya thing with him. I didn't know who Tripurari Maharaj was. But that was the first meeting I had with Guru Maharaj, and that smile and that welcome. So later on, I was doing my silver service and praying. I had been corresponding with Narasingha Maharaj, and because meanwhile they gave me all kinds of books to translate into Italian. By Puri Maharaj, by Paramadvaiti Maharaj, by Narasingha Maharaj, and I got rasa. So I was corresponding with Narasingha Maharaj, and I said that uh, kind of like as a prospective guru. But then I read rasa, and I was like, oh my God, who is this preacher? Love relationships in the sexuality of the soul. Who preaches like that? I was not like, at the Sunday feast, you hear the sex is illicit sex. That's the only thing that accompanies. He's talking about the sexuality of the soul. But I knew he was talking about, well, the rasas and how it went from, conjugal, where, how do you say, um, you know, yeah, conjugal rasa in the material world being the most entangling, and then it gets more and more purifying until you find the teacher, and then you attain shanti, and then the teacher, or vatsalya, becomes uh, lower compared to other, and then conjugal love is the highest thing as much as it's the lowest. I mean, it's probably common ground right now. It's like, sure, but when I read the book, I was like, and the words he used, I was like, what a preacher. There's nobody else like him who speaks like that. So and then I ordered Ancient Wisdom for Modern Ignorance, which incidentally I heard the Guru Maharaj said he would not even, if it came nowadays, he doesn't even like those books. To me, they were eye-opening, the way he would preach. And so after reading Ancient Wisdom, and again knowing what he was talking about, but the words he chose, the kind of the quality of the preaching, I felt like offering a glass of water to the picture of him in the back cover. So I was telling Narasimha Maharaj all that, and so I don't know. One letter led to the other, and he said, Narasimha Maharaj said, "I'm coming to Italy to preach," because he had a little thing developing in Eastern Rimini on the East Coast, and you could come with me and translate, just do the service of translating as I preach in Italy. But that never came to happen. So I was like, all right, well, how about I go to Eugene? And that's how it all started. I moved there, and then 2 weeks later, I was the head pujari of Golnitai.
That I found very fascinating. That 2 weeks after moving to Eugene, you got first and second initiation. So Guru Maharaj saw something in you that he
Yeah.
doesn't do that. I mean, that's not a common
On the day of my
common occurrence.
initiation, on my initiation day, I was like a Christmas tree. I had a Harinam chadar. I made myself some tulsi armlets with kavachas, and I had that, Narasimha Prasad made of silk threads,
Oh
one of
yeah.
those. I made Fimo dough stamps with the chakra and the conch. I was like a Ramanuja Bhakta, and I was like big Sika and everything. And so then Guru Maharaj went to town, and when he came back, I was chanting my first authorized rounds. I was like chanting out all serious Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And Guru Maharaj said, "Would we like him to address the deities? Because they put all the vanity onto something worth it." And that was the beginning. It just
Yeah, you saw that
never
artistic.
stopped.
That's great. Well, we have a few minutes left. If there's a question from anyone who's on the call, let's see, other than Smati. Anybody else have a question? Cora, you have any questions from the Spanish side? Not yet.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Yes, but again, I came to the realization that we're not Paramahansas, so this is like a hospital inside of a prison house, because the material world is a prison house, if you want to see it that way, and and a transcendentalist is crazy by material standards. We're crazy out of our rockers, so we're in some kind of like psychiatric ward. Um, and but even on the material level, it can be quite testing. So what I'm hoping to do is live here for 10 months, and just if I could get my vacation like 2 months, which most of the people here, they have parents who can fly them over. They would take, pre-pandemic, a month, 2 months off to be with their family, and somehow it would make them hanker for being back here. And sometimes I do get the burden of the mud and the dust and the constant birds and bugs and earthquakes and hurricanes and bureaucracy and everything. But if I could take 2 months vacation and then come back here with all the shopping that I'm already thinking of doing and all the ideas and all the money, and then sure, I have no problem living here the rest of my life. I mean, even just for my health, from the very most basic corporal bodily conception, I can just stretch and get an organic lemon, a mango, or ginger, everything. I got gallstones. So everything for my liver is right here. I got dandelion and stinging nettle. I wouldn't live in any. I wouldn't live in any place with the winter, where stuff doesn't grow and then boxed up in an apartment. And here I can teach and work all over the world while living here. But no, it is when it's not heaven here, it's hell. I'm not supposed to say these things, but I really value sincerity or honesty. And so clearly you got to have a transcendentalist mentality, and the environment is friendly. And yes, I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. But maybe for 2 months, if I could take a little break, that would be
Uh,
ideal. So that's
well,
my
you had to
full
get your
answer for.
lessons somehow. So Krishna put you in
Yeah,
an environment that's most of the time is very idyllic, and you have some periods of time where it's very challenging. Yeah, but you're
a
doing
lot
it.
of people prove that they couldn't live here for
Yeah.
3 months. Gurmar said Madhavan is go to Sundar, Syamasundara, and Braja Sundari. Somehow we're, tempered and vaccinated in more ways than one, because we got vaccinated last week. So
Well, I guess we are pretty much out of time unless there's one quick question somebody else might have. Probably end on that note. So I really thank you so much for coming and putting yourself on the hot seat, so to speak, and
Yeah.
and dealing with all those emotions that you had and you didn't write to
Mhm.
me the day before. I changed my mind. I can't do this.
No, I would, again, like just in the spirit of service, I wouldn't have done that. But like 20 years ago, I would be shaking, and because I got this problem that like I was being nervous about the translator not keeping up. Sometimes I want to say so much that the words jam in my mouth, and then I start stuttering, and I'm like, oh, they're losing interest, they're not listening, and I was afraid that would happen. But
No
mm,
stuttering,
if you get me
not
to
one.
talk, that's
Yeah, so how do you feel now at the end? Do you feel relieved? Do you have any, what's going on?
No, again, I'm just grateful, and I could talk about our devotion, even just as a conversation. I'm ready to hear as many life stories from other devotees as much as I am for any other meeting. Like I said, we should all do
Yeah,
this
yeah,
twice, 3 times around. Why not?
yeah.
I want many of
We
you.
have some years. Some of you
Yeah.
have more years, so, so someone can take my place when I go and can keep doing it. Well, thank you so much, and so much appreciation for your hearing your story. And yeah, the messiness is really a lot about relationships, and on the micro level, the little things that go on every day. I mean, for me, that's always been the messiness for me too. So I really appreciated that. All right, so next week, let's see, we have Indra Nuja is going to be our interviewee next week. He's from Scotland originally, Prabhupada disciple who took his first initiation from Prabhupada. He took second initiation from another ISKCON guru, but he's reinitiated by our Guru Maharaj. And quite an interesting fellow, good sense of humor. So I think everybody please join us for that. And we'll see everybody soon, for maybe Sunday or before, for another one of the calls. Bye.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you for the
Panchakalpas
chance.
Churviyastha Kripa Sindhu Viva Chapatita Namba Vinebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Haribo.
Hari Hari.
Haribol, Archana-siddhi dasi ki